Leva drink. Wine. Who said that? If you guessed Dracula, you're right. And what happened to Dracula? I'll give you a hint. He is currently trying to get out of a deal that he made with Twitter. That's right, Elon. That fake name and that fake hairline isn't fooling anyone. Honestly, some vampires are such fame-hungry egomaniacs with zero self-awareness. It's not attractive to constantly need to be the center of attention. Right, cameraman?
Actually.
Thank you for your input, but let's keep the focus on me, so I can introduce tonight's guest, who is not only one of the original 25 magic artists, but she is currently head of winery relations for Rising Wine Collectives and has successfully worked as an art director, game designer. She's a self-made powerhouse named Sandra Everingham, and her interview starts now.
I love your shirt, by the way. Okay.
Huh? Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's this like company called Insarun, and like they're the most ridiculous shirts, but I love them. Like they work well on a a Zoom call. I don't know if I'd wear this out and about. Maybe not daytime.
It actually matches my painting.
You noticed? Yeah.
Of course I noticed.
Yeah, a little bit of a gay guy coming in there, just a little bit of gay, just drop it in there. But yeah, I couldn't help it. I had to
I love it.
So, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Oh, thank you. I'm super excited.
So what initially drew you to the arts as a young person?
Probably my mom is a huge influence. She was interested in oil painting, drawing, and other crafts. And I think there was this epiphany moment, when I was 3. I mean, I was really young. I was watching her paint in the living room with an easel, and I distinctly remember like declaring, that I was going to be an artist. So that never stopped that draw. Of course, I wanted to be a vet, and I wanted to be astronomer at some point. But, I distinctly remember always having that creative, that stream, wanting to make things. But the ways I've expressed that has taken just many forms over the years. So my parents seemed to take pride in me doing art. So they were very encouraging and supportive during that.
So did your mom paint professionally, or was she just, was it a hobby for her?
Yeah, hobbyist. She ended up being a teacher. And so she, used a lot of her creative skills with the kids and the school. And it's something she really enjoyed. And now that she's retired, I thought, oh, she's going to do pottery. She's going to do that. No, she's just really into her plants. So never ended up doing it professionally.
And that's a unique situation, I'd imagine, because a lot of times you hear most parents are if they're not necessarily maybe always unsupportive, but they're very hesitant when their child wants to go into something that involves the arts because of the unsurety of it all.
Right. Yeah. No, they always believed in me. They knew I would always find my way somehow. They always encouraged me.
And so college was really when the this is gonna be a bad joke, when the magic really happened. When it all came together. So who did you meet first out of all of the original crew of the MTG artists? Who was the first one you met?
Well, Amy Weber, Jesper Mirfors, and myself were the 3 illustration graduates at Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle. So we were into classes together from the very beginning.
Okay.
Amy and I actually competed for a full ride scholarship right out of high school. And I was told by the college when they called me up that out of all the applicants, hundreds, it came down to her and I for the design department. I don't think I've ever told that story before. And they ultimately awarded her the scholarship, well deserved. And let's see, the first year was also like Julie Barrow, Andy Rousseau, Anson Maddox, and then I had class with Drew Tucker. It may have been like a physics class. I don't remember what class it was, but I told him he needed to chat with Jesper because there was this new game. So that's how that started.
And you knew when you play tested it, you knew that it had potential to become a big success. But even is it correct that your father was impressed by it, and he was an early investor as well?
Yeah. So, oh man, that was a really life-shifting event that altered the course of my life truly. I mean, yes, being in the right place at the right time, the Cornish, and yes, we're being just, audacious enough to, it's like, I'm, and be art director. Most people know that story. And me being in the right place, the right time, in college with him. But, and I'm sure oodles of people have had that same experience with Magic. This is one of the greatest games I've ever played. And I can't remember exactly who showed me how to play, but it was in Peter's basement. But it was with the famed white playtest cards. And after my first game, I felt this energy of excitement kind of really well up in my gut. I had goosebumps. I know I must have said, yeah, this is a really good game. Thank you for showing me. But what was going on in my head was like, holy effing shit. This is going to be big.
Yeah.
I got on the phone with my dad, and I am amazed that he handed over his, blue collar earnings to Wizards based on a phone call from his 20-year-old daughter saying he needed to invest in a card game. I am so happy he did, because I probably never hear the end of it. If he didn't. I still get I wish I invested more, but it really made me feel good that my parents trusted me and that they got to share in that success. I'm really happy they did.
I mean, the excitement in your voice must have been palpable, because parents, when they hear, they know how their kids sound. And when you hear that tone of excitement, they probably were like, we don't hear that often. Like this might be.
They think about it. I mean, they had to think. It's not like they're like, yeah, let's do it. We're going to think about this, and they decide how much. But I think they heard the potential. And my parents, I grew up playing games with my parents. I learned, Texas Hold'em with my dad and my grandparents, and we played a lot of poker. My mom and I played a lot of video games, Commodore 64. I mean, she was a gamer. I'd wake up and I'd see she's like still playing at 1:00 in the morning.
That's so interesting.
Oh yeah, my mom is like sci-fi, fantasy nut. That's where I got my love of, story. Yeah, Godzilla, Jason and the Argonauts, all those shows. My mom was totally into them. So yeah.
Was your mom also a horror fan too, as well?
Yep.
See, that's so cool, because for me, like, my mom has to leave the room when anything is.
I have to leave the room. I hate horror.
You do?
I get scared. Yeah, I don't like horror. I always ask people, is it scary? Because I may not watch it.
What was the scariest movie you've ever seen?
The Ring.
That was.
That was a good scary, because it was suspenseful. There was a story line. It just kept building and building until this, the big moment where you get to see what's going to happen. But gory, can't do it.
Yeah.
I
can understand that. I mean, like, there are movies out there that are just not, like, you can't replace gore with fright. It's not how it works. In fact, a lot of the classics have very little on-screen violence on them. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre doesn't actually have any real on-screen violence. It's all shown by angles. Same with the Halloween. Like, you don't see a lot of on-screen violence. It's all implied. So, I wonder. I find it interesting, because you have described your work as sort of like I guess you said like beautiful macabre, or is something along those lines, where that was sort of your style, and yet you are scared of horror. So
yeah,
where would you ever? I mean, but yet you did art direction. So it's an interesting dichotomy, I guess. It's sort of being like, you create worlds of horror, and then you run away from other people's worlds of horror.
Well, I have a limit. I think when I watch, it's probably mirroring neurons in my head that everyone has, where when you watch horror, you kind of feel it. Like if I'm watching something that's a little too in reality on screen, it's like it feels like I'm there, and it's really scary. So I think when we're talking about just art or 2D, it's not as real to me.
Gotcha. Yeah. Have you ever created, like, has there been any of your arts where you've created the world and if you looked at it and you're like, oh, like you've creeped yourself out with your own artwork?
maybe Yawgmoth Demon.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. That's getting a little sinewy.
Yeah, yeah. It's very David Cronenberg feel to it.
Yeah.
The fly, very squishy.
Yeah, if I were to do that again, I'd probably make it even grosser. So
there you go. So I was wondering now. This is sort of it's really cool to talk to you. Oh, not just one of the first women artists in Magic, but like one of the first women art directors. I've heard though from a lot of people that they discuss the industry itself being somewhat of a boys' club, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And how did you manage that? And was there anything that you had to deal with, being a woman, and especially as you ascended to roles of, more responsibility, was there anything that you had to deal with, or how did that work for you?
Okay, getting a little deeper here. So the concept of the boys' club wasn't in my vocabulary or my conscious reality in the beginning of my career. So it was never a thing where I felt I couldn't progress in my career or ask for more money, because I usually always did, especially beginning of a job, or, ask for a promotion. Not that I always got it, but I never felt that I couldn't do those things, because I didn't have evidence in my life that I couldn't. Were there a couple of very uncomfortable moments that would never happen in today's Wizards? Yes, of course. And okay, I'll tell this story.
Okay.
So I'm sure some people have heard of, maybe some people have heard that infamous company retreat at Wizards where, co-workers at every level, they sat in a room, mm-hmm. telling the group who within the company they wanted to sleep with. So I did not end up going on that retreat, but that following Monday at work, I was getting, I could describe it as like a vibe, looks. It was something that was something was different. I went up to the desk of a guy in customer service who, I chatted up a lot. How was the retreat? So as he was, talking with me, he was smiling at me strangely. And then I don't know why Anu would say this, but proceeded to share with me that when he had been in the room that late one night, and he's basically, quote, "Your name came up a lot." When I heard that, I just felt like I'd been kicked in the gut, and I was pretty uncomfortable for a while in meetings or just talking to any male coworker, not knowing who was in that room. So, I had to brush it off.
Yeah.
I had to forget about it. So I did. I think sometimes as women, we're really good at just kind of scooting things to the side.
Yeah, that's
deal with that.
That's something else. And it's it's even funny that you mentioned that, because I've talked to so many of the the early artists, and like everybody admitted to having a crush on you, which I thought was charming enough. But then the something like that happening, it certainly takes the charm out of it.
Yeah, and some people feel the need to tell me that too.
That's a whole nother thing.
Years later. So overall, I feel like I've been really lucky to have been in just safer environments within the game industry. And I believe being primarily a manager or director type positions probably may have helped that. But I feel like I'm lucky. Another way I think things that I experienced, also being lucky, but I think I got mixed messages back then and beyond. Of I would get told by other coworkers or people, like, "You're really intimidating," and at the same time, why didn't you take more of your power in the position that you had? So how does one process that?
That's confusing.
You're intimidating, yet you didn't take your. It's like, lower yourself, but raise yourself.
Yeah,
So
that's weird.
I know. So what I took away from that as a person in my 20s was be nice and pleasant to people so people like you.
Yeah.
So I think I ended up being a people pleaser. My priority was. So, and at the time, I equated, especially at Wizards, I equated taking your powers being a bulldozer and forcing change.
Hmm.
So I think what I've learned as I've, matured and grown up and been in different organizations, I learned what good leadership is from, both male and female role models. And as a leader, it's not about you. And leaders also have just impeccable boundaries.
Hmm.
And those two things I've learned over the years and really have tried to hone in myself. So I'm a manager. It's not about me. It's about the team.
That's a very interesting way to think about it. And as somebody who's not been in a managerial position, that makes sense, because if you divorce yourself from any sort of like of the inner stuff that's happening, you are going to be respected. You're going to be respected because you're there to drive the thing forward.
Yeah, people can sniff out bullshit. People know authenticity when they see it. People know real leadership when they see it.
I think that's I mean, Lord knows I've had my runs where I'm like, is this person, how did this happen? I mean, whose father's who, or whose mother's that was maybe a little mean, but I can't.
Right.
I shouldn't have said such a thing. But speaking of rising to more responsibility. So how did you transition from artist to art director? What was the story behind that?
Well, I'd started off working in the basement. I was, came in just as a production artist. I had every intention when I was in college to be a fine artist. I had an art dealer. Even though I graduated in illustration, I really just wanted to do fine art. I was an abstract painter. I wanted to, so the college really worked with me. I spent most of my time in the art department painting. But being friends with Jesper, he's like, we need a production person, needs someone help scanning in all this art. And so I need a job, I need money. Well, I was working for stock a little bit too, but I went in, started scanning art, was really enjoying it. That's when I played the game. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I learned on the job. I didn't know Illustrator, I didn't know Photoshop, I didn't know any computer programs. And so I learned everything while on the job on this tiny little computer that we all shared and did shifts on. And, after a couple of years, Jesper had moved on. And so Peter brought me into his office, like, you want to be the magic art director? And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I want to do that. But I was like, oh my God, okay.
And what was one of the most, I guess, like, was there a moment of, if you had to pick a moment of, like, say, like triumph, where you felt like what we were working on, what really came to fruition? Was there either a piece or an experience that gave you that feeling that I did a good job? I did this.
I think there was a time that I had become like a co-manager for the design department at Wizards. So it went beyond, working with the artists and assigning artwork. There was something that I think that was bubbling inside of me, that I actually really liked working with people more than I ever really realized. And I had stepped away from that for a while, but I found my way back time and time again with working with people, managing people, really building relationships. And so I think, there's the going to Gen Con and our knowing that the first hint of success, which was like blew me away, was, our 6 months of product only lasted 6 weeks.
That must have been incredible.
It was incredible. It was, I think everyone was like, oh my God, we have no money to print more cards. what are we going to do? We need money, we need funding. So that, and then being at, the Origins and Gen Con and signing cards, and just people, you could feel people's excitement that like, this is a magic artist, sign my cards. And I didn't get used to that at all for a really, really long time. Mm-hmm. Like, it was weird. It was strange, slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. I'm Magali Villeneuve was talking about that. When you go as an illustrator, right, you're usually like somebody who's quiet, maybe is not necessarily used to being in a giant sphere of people, and then all of a sudden you're being treated as a rock and roll star. That must have been like, I can see how that would take some time to adjust.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool. I'm not saying it wasn't cool. It was really cool, but it was weird. Like, me? What? Really?
And Mana, you mentioned, talking about, working with people, your career trajectory it is fascinating. You've worked at Microsoft, EA, WizKids Incorporated, then you've done artist management, and now currently you're podcast hosting, and now currently you're director of winery relations. How do you do that?
So you forgot executive coaching and wine business management and other things of alternative therapies. So I've done a lot.
Fire me for that one. I fucked up. I'm sorry, but
no.
Oh no, but I did fuck up, but not like, I'm not like mad at myself. But okay, so
I make fun.
Oh, you can make fun, but how do you do that? You're literally like, you are just all over the place.
So I like to say I'm multi-passionate.
That's apt.
And I don't know if I have ADD or not. I don't know. What do you think? Like, if you were just looking at it, do I have ADD? I don't know.
Possibly, maybe.
But I am definitely a recovering overachiever. So let me put it that way.
Okay.
So I'm still doing a lot of different things. My life is still really full, but now my motivation doesn't come from this need to achieve, but what I feel that just needs to be expressed. So I think now I'm over 50. So now I'm like, at more peace, just have more peace overall, which I think is a healthier well for me to draw from. So yeah, but yeah, no, I feel like I didn't intend to get into games, and then I got into games, but I've always had all these interests for sure. Oh man, that's a whole long story from that. But
look, you tell the story. I'm here to listen. I find it fascinating. Because I am trying to understand it's not schizophrenic, and that makes it sound in a pejorative sense, but it really is very diverse, and you seem to be excellent at everything that you put your mind to. I want to understand the psychology of that.
Well, I think it just kind of touched on what I said. What's that underlying motivation that pulls you forward? Mm-hmm. So I think for most of my life, it was a combination of this need to achieve due to probably some childhood stuff. But also I've had this insatiable drive to learn. If I can just get paid to learn, I would be super happy.
Mm-hmm. Professional student would be awesome.
Yeah, just my parents have always encouraged me to try new things. So if I said, I want to play the piano, they said, okay, here's a piano. Or that I wanted to ice skate, my mom took me to train to be a competitive skater, which I was as a child.
And you play piano as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a little bit I did piano. I was a competitive ice skater. I was in ice shows when we lived in Montana. I skated a little bit with a former Olympian.
Wow.
Skater, Scott Davis. Yeah.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. That was just a little bit. It was just practice. Nothing major. I actually wasn't very good at skating.
Oh.
I hated competing.
Maybe the pressure's kind of tough, I'd imagine.
The pressure got to me. I love performing. I love the art side of it. So there are times I wanted to play basketball, so I played basketball, or I wanted to make the cheerleading team. I was in pageants, so I just did that. So
what haven't you done? like that's I mean, and when did you start playing piano? How old were you then?
It was just as a kid. I just did it for 3 years. I mean, it's like I never really did something for a really, really long time, for maybe a handful of years. But for me, how I grew up, there was always an open door to at least try, even if I wasn't very good at something, because I wasn't good at everything. Some things I excelled at, some things I didn't. And it wasn't that I had zero fear around everything, because a lot of people ask me, like, God, you just seem like you just have no fear. And that's not true. I do have fear, but any fear I've had is, kind of overcome by excitement and to trying to accomplish something new and learning. I think there's just kind of overrode the fear level. Plus, I think I have a high risk tolerance, startups, crypto.
Wow. Yeah. I don't have the guts for that kind of stuff, but I admire people who do. I really do.
Don't get me started with Luna and Voyager right now. So,
well, I mean, did you want to start yourself, or because I will not tell you not to get started. That would make me a terrible interviewer. So I mean, if you have anything you say.
Too volatile, but I'm also thinking about NFTs. That seems interesting.
I mean,
poo it, but I really feel that the future is digital currency. It's probably may not be the form that we see it now. And we've always had collectibles, and digital collectibles. We've had those in video games for years. So,
do you think that from what I understand NFTs to mean, and from what I've understood from speaking to other modern day artists, like it seems like there's a difference between what some of these like scammers are trying to do with stealing art versus what an NFT could eventually become. Is that not a fair way to think of it?
Well, there's always going to be scammers, even in the real art world. There's people ripping off, magic artists all the time trying to sell things, so I mean, there'll always be, people are trying to game the system and trying to make money, but I think people, who truly want to support the artists are going to buy from the artists. And what I do like about NFTs is that when you sell something, or as an artist, you can put or denote how much money do you want on a resale. I get 5%, I get 10% for every resale, and that money comes back to you.
I see.
So I think that's great.
Have you tried that out with any of your personal pieces that you've done throughout the years? Have you tried that like as a test sale or something?
No, I have not tried NFTs yet. I am very intrigued. It's a time issue. Really, I just don't have any time with all the things I'm doing.
And you currently are like, what are you currently doing? What's the full like schedule? What's like a daily schedule of Sandra?
Oh my goodness. So that kind of goes into some of the transition from games into another group of my passions, which has been traveling, learning, and talking about wine. I've co-hosted a wine podcast called Decanted for almost 6 years now. My soon-to-be hubby is my co-host, and he's transitioning that to YouTube. So he's mostly going to be on YouTube and doing like documentary style filming. And so I'm really, really excited for that brand to shift to video and where he's going to take that. So I did that for a while. Anyway, so I helped co-found Rising Wines Collective. It's a wine e-commerce company and winery. We do make our own wine. It's licensed in Oregon, even though I live in Washington, with one of my BFFs who is a winemaker and our CEO. So I'm the head of winery relations, and I curate these small production wines that we offer, and we're just steadily growing, across the United States to be able to ship to more and more states. and it's a beautiful sight. I just love it. It's a passion. I love wine. I love drinking wine. It's something you could never learn everything about. So, if people want to discover and shop amazing wine, be a part of cool wine clubs, learn more about it, we've got like resources and recipes and that give you like wine pairings, check us out.
No, I would never.
Collective.com.
Absolutely. No, I would never ever say to somebody, like, I would never recommend that somebody were to steal something. But hypothetically, if you had to say, steal this bottle of wine because it is so good, which one would you hypothetically suggest? Like, if it was just so good, but most people can't afford it. Like,
why does stealing have to be involved?
I mean, I feel like, but if you say buy it, people will be like, well, I don't have the 3,000 for the Krug.
Okay, so misconception. Misconception.
Okay.
Not all expensive wines are good.
Okay.
Not all cheap wines are bad.
All right.
So it depends on where the wine's coming from. Like California cabs, you're going to get some really high price stuff there because part of it is kind of that cult following they've marketed to. Also, the land is really expensive, the production is really expensive, so things do cost more down there. But you get some amazing cabs from Washington that have similar structure, similar just potency and yumminess for like a quarter of the cost.
Okay.
So I think it depends on where you're getting it from. What region are you getting it from? So
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So yes, there are some expensive wines that there's a reason why they're expensive and they are really good.
Like, what was one of those? I'm always curious to know, like, because what would be like, what's a fancy wine that's really good?
Well, okay. So I'm going to do there. Kind of our local cult wine is called Cayuse. It is Oregon. It's in the wall. It's like in the far upper right corner of Oregon. And the waiting list for some of their brands, one of them is 20 years waiting list. I'm not joking. There's people who work at the winery that can't get the wine. I have one bottle. And sitting in my cellar. But yeah, they have different brands that could be anywhere from 5 years to 7 years to get on the waiting list. We happened to meet the winemaker at an event, and he's like, "You're on the list because I now know you." So,
wow.
Yeah, Cayuse. They're amazingly interesting wines, funky, but they can lay down for 10 years, and you don't want to drink them before 7.
Because that they need time to do their thing. Is that
yeah, they need to develop in that bottle. So
interesting. The history of wine. I mean, just like, how did human beings figure this out? Like fermenting and
it was just accident, and they drank it and got drunk. They're like, this is the best feeling ever.
Right. I wonder how many things have been done by accident. Another thing, I mean, it's not related to wine, but like I'm blown away at the fact that all human beings in all civilizations managed to breed dogs and make fun little different versions or big versions of dogs. Like, how did we know how to do that back when there was no real science to do so? I mean, it's incredible.
Exactly. Everything was killing you, and then you found one that didn't, and so you kept it and then bred it.
Right.
And it just went from there.
Yeah, exactly.
What doesn't kill us is what works.
Yeah, because I have 4 Shih Tzus, and I look at them and I'm like, you're related to a wolf? Like,
that's thousands of years.
I'm like, that's genetically, there's not difference between you and a wolf. You look different than a wolf. I'll tell you that much.
Yep.
So now I read somewhere that you had, because of the diversity in your career, that you don't really consider yourself an artist per se anymore. That you said that doesn't really, it's not a label that you apply to yourself anymore. Is that still true, or is that?
No, not still true. Well, I definitely not an illustrator.
Okay.
But I absolutely consider myself a creative and an artist, as my work has been in spurts over the years in different outlets and mediums like stained glass or ceramic or jewelry or writing. But no, an artist, I always say, like, well, it's a working artist, but I'm an artist at heart, and I do, I do still do painting. I still work on ceramics. So, I may not sell original work right now because I just don't have time, but that's something I want to do in the future. It's something I want to grow. And I see myself in the future with, being a part of a winery and having art studio right next to it, where I can roll out of bed and work on pottery and have a gallery. And so it's just like, I don't know.
Oh, and you could do like paint, you could paint the like labels and stuff like that. Like that'd be cool.
Oh, sure. Sure. Why not? Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I know what it takes to make wine now. So it's not as in the art. I can't actually make the wine, but I know what it means to, the business of it, what all the cogs and everything that goes into making wine. So yeah.
Was there like a big surprise? What was the like most interesting or shocking thing you learned about making wine that you were just like,
oh my gosh. The biggest shock?
Or just one that was just like, you didn't see it coming. Maybe it didn't have to shock you necessarily, but just, you were just like, wow, I didn't even think that was.
That, I mean, that most small winemakers just get out of the way of the grape. The grapes know what to do. Really, really good fruit does its thing. It ferments. So most of it is just spontaneously on itself, by itself. The winemakers don't really have to, they have to guide the wine, but the wine is really going to show you what it wants to be. And they just know when to stop it. They know how to guide it. And so that's where that art comes in, but it's a lot of chemistry. I mean, these winemakers are like chemists and artists. Yeah.
Right. You sort of like, just sort of like a sort of a leading an orchestra of life.
Yeah. And another thing, just learning about tasting wine, like, oh, I'm getting green pepper. There's no pepper in there. There's no peppers growing by thing. It's a chemical. A lot of these, like I taste grapefruit or peaches. There's no peaches. Those are chemical compounds making those flavors. And that's really cool.
Yeah. Right. That is really cool. I mean, I'll never forget. I mean, like the stuff they can do now with, I mean, like those are naturally occurring, but I mean, I even love the unnaturally occurring stuff. It blows my mind that there's some things that you eat it and you're like, this doesn't have any of that in it, but that tastes just like what it's supposed to be. I mean, I like the chemistry, but that's fascinating that the wine guides itself, as you say.
Yeah. And I think that's why the wine industry attracts so many different people. There are so many winemakers that used to be engineers.
That makes sense.
A lot of engineers, scientists. And then you get the other side, it's like, I love cooking. I love food. And I just really got into wine, and I apprenticed and went to school, and people come from two different camps, the science and the art, and they just really join in a nice way.
That makes a lot of sense now that you put it that way, because it sort of does allow for both the scientific and the artistic minds to come together, which, I mean, I'm not saying that those two things are mutually exclusive, but you tend to meet people who are either one or the other in general.
People will lean one or the other. They have that interest, but there's always a kind of this Venn diagram between the two, of course.
Right, exactly. So I guess what brought you back then to Wizards it was in 2019. You came back for a little bit. What was that? What was the story behind that?
Purely by chance. I had previously gone through this ISCF coaching program, and I was working with some clients, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next. I was working at Valve, working on the Artifact game, the now defunct version of the game. And I was actually working on Artifact with Richard Garfield and Scaphalias from Wizards. Yeah. So that was pretty cool, getting the band back together.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And so I was also pretty set that my next move was not going to be in games. But then I got a text from a really good friend of mine with a link to this job description with a message, I think you'll be good at this. So I opened up the link and I saw it was Wizards, and I felt resistance. No, I don't have any interest going back. I'm not going to go back. But I read the job description, and it was everything that I had been thinking about. Working with a team of creatives, internal coaching. There's a big thing. They stress coaching people, making sure people are happy and working well, and, managing workflows. And So if that job description had been with any other company, I would have applied for it because
Mm-hmm.
it was describing exactly what had been in my head, but it just so happened to be for magic. So I saw that as a sign and I went for it and I was hired.
And the experience, I take it was great. I mean,
Yeah,
from
it was
what I
good.
understand, you had a lot of really good experiences with some of the artists that you worked with.
Yeah, it was great reconnecting with some of the artists like Mark Poole, and meeting new artists that have been, part of the scene for a while that I just hadn't met before, like Seth McKinnon, and so it was really wonderful to connect with old and new artists, and be able to, and I got to art direct some cards, and so just a little bit, just I got to dip my toe back into the pool, and that was a lot of fun.
One artist that I've become close with since I was interviewing him, and he'd be very unhappy with me if I didn't say hello to you, but James Arnold wants to say hello.
James, oh my God, I have such a funny. Did he ever tell you the story?
Well, I'll let you tell the story, but because I don't want to stop the story from happening. But please do tell me the story. Just tell me the story. I may have heard it, but I don't mind hearing it again if you don't mind telling me.
James would dress up cosplay as Dark Ritual, and he would go to conventions, and couldn't see his face, and he would be inside a big standee of a card, and he would walk around with that. And I think it was Nicola who sent me an Instagram photo of like, look, Dark Ritual, and she's posing with this person. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I think a couple other people had sent me pictures like, this is really neat. And so my first day at Wizards, they're walking me around to meet my team, and this is James Arnold. He's a graphic designer. He designs all the frames. And I said, great to meet you. And he's like, that Dark Ritual, the frame and the, oh yeah, I've got it. That's me. And I'm like, oh my God, it was so awesome. Yeah. So so I think later he did another version where he was also, one side was Bob Wraith, the other side was Dark Ritual. So yeah, James is awesome.
Yeah, he speaks very, very highly of you. He was like, I'd say you're a mentor to him.
That's really nice. Yeah, he's one of the best humans. I love him.
He's good peeps, and I love his designs. This is going to be an obvious question. We're gonna have to ask it anyway. Mm-hmm. With all of the secret layer stuff happening, and the return of a lot of the original Magic artists to the game, is there a chance that you would consider doing a one-off or even more than one, in regards to coming back as a Magic artist?
Oh, I've learned to never say never when it comes to Magic, obviously, but I would have to say no, because I just don't have the time. And I feel like I've received way more happiness directing art by a really awesome artist than if I was on the other side.
Gotcha.
I think I'm really stressed out.
Really? Okay. Well, that's
I don't know. I mean, I know Secret Lair, Tom Gencott, who's the director, who's just amazing. I would love to work with him. He would be one of the only people, if he asked me, I'd be like, all right, let's figure this out. But as far as a whole set for myself, I mean, I think I just don't have time. But
I mean, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, no, you should. I mean, look, here's the thing. I mean, it would be so cool. It just would be so cool to see. I mean, I love seeing, that sort of like I say, it's the character coming back from the sequel, coming back in the sequel, and you love to see that full circle.
I'd probably do it digitally.
That's fine. I mean, your digital work is excellent. I mean, I was looking at the piece that you did. It started out as Dark Ritual,
yes,
in Magic the Gathering book, and then it became Symbiosis was the name of it.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And you used your daughter as the model, and it sort of, because of that, you said that it could no longer remain the Dark Ritual because of her connection to it. So how did that transition happen with that piece?
Well, yeah, for the book, I had every intention of reimagining Dark Ritual. But yeah, it ended up being this sci-fi-esque portrait using my kiddo as the model. And they had said when I started taking photos of them, this is when they were really young, like 9 or something, I have 2 conditions. do not make me bald. And yeah, oh no, and don't give me tattoos. And for them to like say those two conditions, they know me pretty well. So thus your, lady Orca behind you. So I said, okay. And I did those things anyway. Yeah. So, I created this character, with that headpiece with the glowing lights. And I got that headpiece inspiration from a trip that I took to the coast, where it was a basket sea star, where is this sea star that was just all these tendrils. I'm like, oh my God, that would just make an amazing headpiece. So, and then, creating, having this hummingbird, because I love hummingbirds, but I want to have this character sucking the life out of this hummingbird magically, but it's mutual. It's, how different, animals live together. They're they have get use from each other, and they're happy to do that. So this character was drawing that essence out of the hummingbird so they could gain power. So, at the time I couldn't do anything too dark, and it just didn't feel right to call it Dark Ritual. So that was also my first digital painting.
Really?
I'd never done digital painting before. So I look at it now, I'm like, oh, there's so many things I would do differently, because I see, the magic artists I see, working on artifact, like, Chris Ron and Cynthia Shepherd and Tyler Jacobson. I see their process and their painting, and it's like, oh, I learned so much. I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't.
You guys were so young. I mean, like when really, truly. And I mean, like, it seems like you are primarily, I don't know what digital, but at least your learning process of digital seems more self-taught than anything else. It doesn't seem like you had formal.
Yeah, I taught myself on that piece for sure.
And that's substantial, because that blows my mind too, because it's such to me, a mind-boggling thing to sit down with the computer program, because a lot of people back when digital started coming out, there was like a great, poo-pooing of it that, oh, well, it doesn't work for you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, you sit me down in front of a computer and tell me to make something like that, and it's not going to happen. You could hold a gun to my head and I'd be like, well, just shoot me now, because I can't do that. It requires talent. It requires skill. It
absolutely.
It blows my mind that people could teach themselves that.
It absolutely. I mean, you still have to know form. You still have to know anatomy. You still have to know lighting. You still have to know material, the difference of materials, and have them metal look like metal and cloth look like cloth, skin look like skin.
Right. And
so
it's
just another tool. And I know, people were poo-pooing it, but to me, it takes just as much talent to do an oil painting as it does digital. And I've seen artists that were just traditional painters who tried to do digital, and sometimes it just doesn't translate. Sometimes it does. I wanted to try this, and sometimes it doesn't work. I really like your traditional work. You really know, you've really got a handle on that medium.
Right.
And I just, we can't put your digital art on a card yet. You're just not quite there yet.
Right.
But keep practicing. Yeah.
Yeah, because people, I mean, everybody has their strength and skill sets, and it's not something to be ashamed of. If you excel at oil, and that's fantastic. Most people do not do that ever, so it's
right.
Nothing to be ashamed of. But it is crazy. That is crazy that was your first digital. I mean, that's, again, that's pretty fearless to put that one on on display in such an important book. And really great book too. I mean, just seeing the amount of growth that everybody has had since you started.
Yeah. I'm amazed too. Some people had some tremendous growth, and it's just so exciting. Yeah, it was a fun project.
And so now you work on ceramics now. Do you do any traditional art just on the side for fun? I know your schedule's super busy, but does that urge, that pull come and get you every once in a while? Maybe you just work on it a little bit every day or something?
No, mostly I like working with my hands. I would much rather, build with my hands rather than paint. I am doing a little project right now that
NDA?
doing a little magic painting, not for any card. I'm just, just a client, but I don't know if I'll do anything more, but I am doing a little bit. So I'm getting back into using water soluble oils, which I really like, because it kind of gives you that flexibility that an oil has, but I don't have that odor that you might get from, thinner stuff.
Oh yeah. That's
And I can just wash it with water. So, I'm having fun getting into that again, or well, for the first time, I'm having fun getting into that. And like I said, I do want to, we all create our own reality. So if I really want to work on painting, I will create that for myself.
Oh yeah,
I will
no
make
doubt.
the time, I will do that. But, now is not really the right time yet. I will get back into art. And right now I'm just building the business for the wine. Yeah.
Oh, I do not doubt for a second that if you decide that you want to do something, that you will do it. I just want to know. My angle with all of you is just like, can I plant the idea if it hasn't been planted? Because I'm purely selfish reasons. I want to see it happen because I love it. And I mean and it is true. The fact that all of you guys starting out, you were so young, it was so exceptional. The amount of success you went through, you went through it together. You had it early in life. I mean, it's unparalleled in the world of art. The paintings that those original paintings that you had, now go for, rarefied amounts of money, which by the way, do you still have any of your original pieces that you've kept over the years?
I do have a few. Dark Ritual made its way back to me. I had sold it early on. It did find its way back to me. And so I have it.
How did Dark Ritual find its way back to you?
Well, do I tell the story? I was owed money for a business that went under. And so in order for payment, so would you like these paintings in return in lieu of this money? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
Without hesitation.
That is astonishing, but it's also a little like kind of unfair because it's like you painted it. And I mean, I guess it's not unfair, but it's sort of like, but I mean, I'm glad you got it back. That's incredible. And were there other paintings along with that, or was it just Dark Ritual that you got?
No, it was the Hive as well.
Wow.
So I ended up selling the Hive.
That's a cool one.
But yeah, but no, I still have Dark Ritual, and there's a couple of pieces that I still have. But yeah.
Do you think that they would ever be something that would be put on display if there was ever an offer to do some sort of like touring?
It was once on display, I think, for Emerald City Comic-Con. There was a show with magic. I think they had a room, and they had some artifacts and little play test cards. So that was a curated show. Yeah, for me to let go, let's say if there's going to be a show like in another country or even here, I don't know. There would have to be a huge insurance policy on it. I'd be super nervous to just get on a package.
Yeah, so, I can understand that.
Yeah, if like I ever sold it, like I would be like flying there, with the suitcase with the handcuff, with the combination lock.
Because it's fascinating because it puts you guys in the position of like sales that you can make off of your art. It puts you into top percentages of the the artists of history. I mean, it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, and I know people maybe heard this from other artists, but I really wish that there was some sort of standard where if an artist had sold their magic work at like $200, $300, and it ends up being sold repeatedly 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, that the artist sees something. 5%. I mean, it's just well, I think I speak for myself. You see something selling, just appreciates a collectible. It's like, oh, why isn't it a standard where the artist just gets a little something,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that there's a certain level of like, how do you not feel a little shitty that like,
It's
I
not a
mean,
great feeling.
and I've had some artists like have been these that I've talked to about the same thing. They're like, I try not to feel bad, and then it's like they're like, but and it's like, yeah, and I get it because
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah, I mean, I understand collectibles. I understand people have a right to resell, fine. But there is a little part of you, you're like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's I get it. I'm with you on that one because I'm like, look, if you're spending X amount of dollars, like, you know, it will only work out better for you in the end because you're going to have a very grateful, very happy artist, and they're likely to do, you know, to help you out with, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like when you do nice things for people, there tends to be nice things done in return, and like having an artist that's happy with you is, you know, it's not a bad thing, especially if you know they're ones whose paintings can command X amount of dollars. But that's just my thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, exactly.
This is going to be off. This is going to sound totally out of left field, but I want to know, what is your moisturizing beauty regime? You look fantastic. Like, what do you use? I want brand names. I must know.
Brand names.
Yes.
Thank you. Being over 50, I thank you very much. It's my genes, my dad, probably my dad.
Yes.
And the oodles of money that I've spent on serums, lotions, magical serums, lotions, potions, anti-wrinkle devices. But I think it's also where I live.
Is it? You think it's because
so
Washington?
many people living in the Pacific Northwest look just much younger than their number.
I mean, maybe. So I guess what I need to do is I need to get your genes, and I need to move to Washington, and I need to find magical potion. Well, I got some magical potions.
No sun. Like, where do you live?
Florida.
Oh, so you're in the sun. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. Is it so hot you just don't go out in the sun? You just stay in, you know, air conditioned.
I tend to stay. I have a fractured foot right now, so I basically am, you know. But I'm not a big beach goer. I just am not, because I basically just don't want to, you know, feel like I'm baking.
So that's why you look so young.
Thank you. But
yeah, it's just the sun is brutal.
It's not good. It's certainly, and the closer you get to the equator, the meaner it gets. But it, you know, I take the amount that I need for the vitamin D, you know, and that's about it. They say that, like,
yeah,
but they say, it's interesting. They say you need 15 minutes of vitamin D a day, and yet people are walking around with like clothes on, and like, I guess what they mean by that is that, like, no, you need 15 minutes of vitamin D as if you were walking around naked. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna happen. So I'm just gonna be taking it in my pill form. Thank you.
I do loves me some sun though.
Yeah, it does feel good. There is a rush. You get that rush of, like, you feel it. It's healing. I mean, it's wonderful. So what would be any upcoming projects that you can plug, or you're allowed to plug, that you are working on? Obviously wine, but what else is there that you can bring to our attention?
I think I gave my plug early. You know, with the wine, with the Rising Wines Collective.
It doesn't hurt to plug it again. I mean,
yeah, risingwinescollective.com. It's pretty cool site. It's not just a shop. It's really, we're making our own wines, but we're also, you know, celebrating and offering small production wines from, you know, like Washington, Oregon, Sonoma, California, the top 3 wine regions in the US, and we're shipping, you know, across the United States. Yeah, so you know, these talented winemakers would love the support.
And if, like, a layperson like me wanted to buy something for, like, my parents or something, so, like, you go onto the site, you join as a subscriber, or you just...
No, you can just buy, you know, yeah, we ship to Florida. So no, you can go shop. There's on each product page, it gives you kind of the flavor profiles, like how much acid's in it, if it's really tannic, or how sweet it is, or dry. So you can kind of get an idea, and there's tasting notes. You can kind of see, well, what might I like?
Is there like a way to, is there like a list, like, for a dummy, is there like a place to go to, like, tell you what means what, you know, or like links to that kind of stuff? I remember hearing that wine has legs, but I'm like,
wine does have legs. That's alcohol and sugar content, but that's like when you swirl a wine, and you get the little residual little lines. Yeah, that means there's sugar, lot more sugar in that wine. Yeah, it kind of sticks to the sides.
You don't put malt legs then a lot of, do you?
It depends on if you like sweet wine. I think a lot of newbie wine drinkers tend to lean towards sweeter. And I think the more you drink, people say your palate changes. It's not your palate, it's your brain.
Mm-hmm.
You're rewiring your brain. So like I used to really love sweet. Everyone started off with like, the sweet wine and in high school or
wine coolers.
Exactly.
Gnarly.
So we all start there. We don't go to like the driest, red that just makes your mouth feel like you're sucking on stems and
nobody's drinking gin.
Right. So you kind of, I think if you want to expand, you just have to try new things, and see what you like. I mean, yes, it does cost money, but that's why wine tasting, sometimes you can go out and just explore, tasting rooms in your area, and for a little money you can just try different things. It's really just about expanding your brain and rewiring. So
well, I think I might see if I can buy my parents, like, because it's so hard to buy from my parents because they can afford everything that they already can afford everything.
Right.
But like, this could be cool. This could be a good thing. Maybe I'll surprise them.
Well, we can talk and I can give you some suggestions.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. So I think on the website, people can call the number, people can email us and say, hey, I have this big party coming, or I have these, I'm not really sure what they like, but this is kind of what I see them drinking, that they only drink reds. I'm like, okay, all right. What do you think that might go well? And then we can always help you out.
Awesome. Well, that is about all I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's been great, and it's the wait has been worth it.
Oh, thank you so much. I thank you for inviting me, and I hope people enjoy the conversation.
And look, you can accuse me of being jealous, but I'm not. Bram Stoker put him on the map. And without him, he wouldn't have had the money to be an early investor in PayPal. He's an investor who thinks he's Einstein. And I doubt that they're going to be giving out Nobel Peace Prizes for autopilot cars that keep killing their drivers. By the way, didn't you say something earlier?
We're rolling.
Oh, hello. Isn't Sandra the coolest? And if Tom Jenkins is out there listening, Sandra said you're the art director to get her back in the game. And for your convenience, I put all of Sandra's links in the show notes. And if you're not Tom Jenkins, still check it out. You can visit Sandra's Winery and get info on how to join our Patreon down there as well. Which leads us to the shout out for today. Patron member Austin E. Welcome to House Markov. Together we can show the world that not all vampires are like this. Thank you and good night. I'm not jealous.
Bye-bye.